So what do you think safe spaces means for young sexuality and gender diverse people today? Like why do we need safe spaces? What do you think?
So safe spaces typically are spaces where you feel comfortable in, right? Where you feel like you can be yourself, or where you can feel safe without facing repercussions or having the need to comfort someone else who's offended and things like that, right? So basically being with people who think like you do, and there's a need for that, right? Because sometimes you're just so tired and you want to be in a space where, you know, you can just be. But I think there's also like another part of this equation, which is like the need to have difficult conversations that can sometimes be painful. And in those settings, what we need are brave spaces, right? Typically you come to a brave space with the understanding that, you know, you're going to be vulnerable, you're going to be accepting of various points of view, you're willing to be proven wrong. And I think it's in those spaces that we can have conversations on allyship. What does it mean to be a good ally, for instance? So they're two very distinct spaces, and I think what we do as a community is to conflate them a lot of the time. You know, we talk about, we need safe spaces, but do we really need safe spaces in spaces where what we actually need is to have this cross conversation where something productive can come up, you know, and where change happens.
It's challenging, where it doesn't feel comfortable.
Exactly, exactly. And where frequently there are no right answers, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I guess I've been thinking about, trying to think really carefully about both the idea of safety and the idea about spaces. So what do we mean by, what are the spaces that we're talking about? Because we know that spaces, so from the Queer Generation study at UNSW and with other universities as well, where we talk to people who grew up, who were born in the 70s and born in the 90s about what it was like to grow up queer in different parts of Australia. You know, they talked a lot about those differences, about places that they felt good and connected and recognised, and those places could be places we might not expect. It could be school, it could be church, it could be you know, with their doctor, it could be in the family home, and we heard those sorts of stories. But also, of course, we heard about spaces, physical spaces, but also social spaces that could feel profoundly unwelcoming. They really felt they didn't belong, and that's a real concern, of course. And I think something that I really welcome at this point in history, we're having a cultural conversation about what safety means for young people of all kinds. I think that's really critical.